السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأصلي وأسلم على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبع بسنته إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، إخواني في الله, as we are welcoming the month of Ramadan, we are continuing our lecture series regarding the book of Siyam. Inshallah, tonight will be the last lecture in the month of Sha'ban. Day after, in the month of Ramadan, every Saturday after Asr, we shall be continuing, inshallah. Every Saturday after Asr, we shall be continuing in the month of Ramadan until we finish the entire book of Siyam. You can always refer to the videos from Ilm TV. طيب, the issue we're taking today, Ikhwani Fillah, is regarding the things that invalidate your fast. There are three things, Ikhwani Fillah, in general speaking, that invalidate your fast: eating, drinking, and having intercourse. Those three things, they break your fast. طيب, if someone eats food or drinks, then their sawm becomes invalid. They have to repay back that day. They have to repay back that day. There's no khilaf amongst the Muslims regarding this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَكُمُ الْخَيْطُ الْأَبْيَضُ مِنَ الْخَيْطِ الْأَسْوَدِ إِلَى الْفَجْرِ مِنَ الْفَجْرِ ثُمَّ أَتِمُّوا الصِّيَامَ إِلَى اللَّيْلِ. The second issue, Ikhwani Fillah, what is the punishment of the person who eats or drinks intentionally during the day of Ramadan? Such a person, Ikhwani Fillah, has committed a major sin because he has neglected a pillar of Islam intentionally. And such a person, Ikhwani Fillah, has to repay back that day. They have to pay back the day that they have fasted. We are taking so many issues today, so we shall continue. And this person, Ikhwani Fillah, who eats and drinks, he has broken his fast. That day he must repay. But is he allowed, after he's broken his fast, that he can do whatever he wants during the day of Ramadan? He has eaten intentionally, he has drunk intentionally, he has no fast for that day. Is he allowed therein to do whatever he wants? He can go to his wife, for example, or he can eat as much as he wants because that day is gone. He's not allowed. He must keep away from everything that is forbidden for him the remainder of the day. He must repent and never to go back to that sin. That's why the scholars, they say, from amongst the acts of ibadah that shows the greatest ikhlas is that of the siyam. Fasting is between you and Allah Azza wa Jal. No one knows what has happened during your fast except you and Allah Azza wa Jal. So if you're hiding in those kibandas and taking your madondos and your chapatis, it's you and Allah Azza wa Jal who knows. And you shall be held accountable for that. طيب, if someone eats or drinks accidentally, they forget, especially the first few days of Ramadan, you find you take a bottle of water or a glass of water, then I'm fasting. Type. You have drunk that water, be it a liter or half a liter or a third of a liter. What happens to your fast? Nothing happens to your fast. Your fast is okay. But you have to stop immediately. You remember, do not continue drinking. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, the Prophet ﷺ says, مَنْ نَسِيَ وَهُوَ صَائِمٌ. Whoever forgets and they're fasting, فَأَكَلَ أَوْ شَرِبْ, and they eat or drink, فَلْيُتِمَّ صَوْمَهُ, then they should complete their fast. فَإِنَّمَا أَطْعَمَهُ اللَّهُ وَسَقَاهُ. It's Allah who has given him food and drink. طيب. Some people make a funny interpretation of this hadith. They say, فَإِنَّمَا أَطْعَمَهُ اللَّهُ وَسَقَاهُ, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has fed this person and given him drink. So they say, based on this, if you see your brother and your sister drinking water or eating food, Allah has given him drink and food, you should not stop them. Is that logic okay? Who agrees with that logic? No, it's not okay. If you see your brother and your sister, they have forgotten and they start eating during the day of Ramadan, you're obligated to tell them, it's Ramadan, what are you doing? Then they have to stop immediately. طيب. If you swallow your saliva, does that break your fast? Swallowing your saliva does not break your fast. But there's something strange here the scholar said. He says, as long as the saliva is within your mouth. If the saliva comes out of your mouth, something disgusting, I don't know how that will work. If the saliva comes out of your mouth, then you bring it back inside, then that khalas, it's gone to a plate or a cup or something. If you swallow that breaks your fast. But if it's within your mouth, then you swallow it, that does not break your fast. Type. We have so many issues. What if you have something left in your tooth? Suhoor you ate, I don't know, meat or something, some things are left on your tooth. You didn't use the dental floss or you didn't use the toothpick. Then at the time of Fajr, you feel some meat there. You remove it with your tongue. What are you supposed to do with that? You're supposed to spit it out. If you swallow it, you've broken your fast. Because that is still considered to be food. Understood? The next issue, Ikhwan Fillah, if someone swallows something that is not generally eaten, someone swallows a coin intentionally, or string, or charcoal, or anything, or metal, or leaf. If you swallow, even if it is not something that is known as food, it still breaks your fast. It still breaks your fast, and this is the opinion of the 4 madhabs. This is the opinion of the 4 madhabs. So if you swallow a coin intentionally, or a string, or anything of that sort, if you have some weird habits, some people have some weird habits, all that breaks your fast. Type, if you smoke cigarette or shisha, that also breaks your fast. This is, alhamdulillah, most of you know this. Type, if you break your fast thinking that the sun had set, you are sure that the sun had set, then it becomes clear to you that the sun had not set. Have you understood? It's a cloudy day. Over here, alhamdulillah, we have clocks and you can tell the time. But as we said previously, don't take this ni'mah for granted. You can find yourself one day in a prison, or in a dungeon, or in the desert, or lost in a forest somewhere, and you have to know the rulings. So you look at the clouds, there's no sun. You think it has set. Then you break your fast. Then the sun comes out. You were seeking the truth, but you did not get it. So you broke your fast before the time of sunset. What happens to your fast? Now, رَبَّنَا لَا تُؤَاخِذْنَا إِن نَسِينَا وَأَخْطَأْنَا. Oh Allah, do not hold us to account if we forget or if we make a mistake. So if you have sought the truth and you fail to get the truth, there's no harm on you. You continue with your fast. And this happened to the Sahaba as narrated by Asma bint Abi Bakr. One day they thought it has set and they broke their fast. Thereafter the sun came out. It was still day. So they continued their fast, and the Prophet ﷺ did not command them to repeat that day. But if you do it, out of ignorance or out of doubt, then you have to repeat that day. You have to repeat that day. You as a Muslim have to work closely to certainty. You have to be very certain that you have broken your fast. But this does not mean you go to the extreme whereby, like the timetables they add 10 minutes or 15 minutes to iftar, or reduce 15 minutes and 10 minutes to suhoor. All this is illegal. Follow the adhan. The adhan of Fajr is right now 5. What time is the adhan of Fajr now? 5:25. So it's 5:25. Tomorrow it'll be 5:24, 5:23. Then the shocking surprise, you look at the timetable of Ramadan, it tells you 5:05 iftar. You're like, yesterday the adhan was 5:25, 5:24, and today the first of Ramadan, the timetable tells me 5:05. No. Follow the adhan. The same thing with Maghrib. The adhan of Maghrib right now is what? 6:49 or 6:48? About 6:48. Then you see the timetable tomorrow when it comes out, you see it's written Iftar Nairobi 6:55. They keep an allowance, and that is going against the sunnah of Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ commanded us to delay the suhoor and to rush to do the iftar. Taib. We have so many issues. What if someone takes the suhoor after the time of Fajr accidentally? You wake up, you look at your clock, and you think, it's 5, and you take something. Then later on, maybe your clock was wrong. You had not set your time. Now, you continue. Based on the verse in Surah Al-Baqarah, رَبَّنَا لَا تُؤَخِذْنَا إِن نَسِينَا أَوْ أَخْطَأْنَا. As long as you did not do it intentionally, you have made a mistake. It's a valid mistake. But you can't tell us you're seeing the sun, then you're eating your suhoor at that time. That does not make any sense. طيب. So these are the issues regarding food and drink. So food and drink, ikhwani fillah, it invalidates your fast. It invalidates your fast. The next issue, ikhwani fillah, is regards to sexual relations during the day of Ramadan. Whoever has sex with a spouse during the day of Ramadan intentionally, they have invalidated their fast. They have to repay that day, and they have to pay a penalty. Whoever who is intimate with the wife during the day of Ramadan, that sawm is invalid. They have to repay that day, and they have to pay the penalty. What is the penalty? Number one, you have to free a slave. You're not able to free a slave, you have to fast 2 months consecutively. You're not able to fast. Why are you not able to fast? Some people will say we're not able to fast. It's difficult. No, difficult is not an issue. Able to fast medically, you're not able to fast. You're not able to fast Ramadan actually or something. 2 months, no, you fast. If you're not able to fast those 2 months, which is 60 days, consecutive. If you fast 55 days and you break, you have to restart from the beginning. So it has to be 60 days consecutive. But if there's a break related that is allowed by the Sharia, like for Eid, that you're not allowed to fast, or for your periods, if you're a lady, then you can continue. That is not considered a break. But if you just take a break out of yourself, you have to continue. So 2 months consecutive. Free slaves. Where can you free slaves right now in the world? There are no slaves right now in the world. So whoever is intimate with the wife during the day of Ramadan, they have to fast how many months? 2 months, which is 60 days. They're not able to fast 60 days for a very valid reason. They have to come to us, to the scholars or the students of knowledge, the Qadi will give them. We should not leave this to the people, because people will take advantage. Then you can feed 60 people. You can feed 60 people. How much do you feed? The standard, which is 1.5 kgs every day. Taib. This is based on that man who came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, "Oh Prophet, I have been destroyed." He says, "What happened?" He said, "I slept with my wife during the day of Ramadan." He says, "Do you have a slave to free?" He says, "I don't have a slave to free." "Can you fast 2 months?" He says, "I'm very old, I cannot fast 2 months." "Do you have food to give 60 people?" He says, "I'm the poorest person in Medina." So the Prophet ﷺ gives him food, and he says, "Oh Prophet, where do I do this food? I give to the poor. There's no one poorer than me." So he ends up getting the food, and the Prophet ﷺ laughed at such a situation. Taib. So it is in that order. You have to pay back that 1 day that you have had intimacy, and you have to pay the 2 months. This also applies to the people who play games. There are some people who set out for travel just for, you can't wait for a few hours. Your shahawat is so great like that. Your desires are so great. So you have set out for a few hours so that you can do haram, what has been made haram, halal for you by using a deception. Therein will also punish you with the same way by making you fast for 2 months consecutive. One of the leaders of Andalus, Abdurrahman al-Thani. Andalus, Muslim Spain and Portugal had 3 leaders. Abdurrahman al-Dakhil, Abdurrahman al-Awsat, and Abdurrahman al-Nasir. So Abdurrahman al-Thani, he was intimate with one of his concubines during the month of Ramadan, Malakat al-Ayman. For him it's easy to free a slave. He has thousands and thousands of slaves. So the scholar Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi, he looked at his situation, he said, "No, I'm not going to allow you to free a slave, because tomorrow you'll repeat the same thing. You will not learn the lesson that's required to learn. So I will not allow you to free a slave. You have to fast 2 months." Our scholars are telling me, "Sheikh, the ayah has come, or the hadith says, free slave or thereafter." No, it's free slave then thereafter. It's not or. Free slave thereafter. 2 months fasting. If you're not able to, thereafter, 60 days, 60 people you feed. Why are you refusing him this first option? He says, if you look at the maqsad, if you look at the objective of that punishment, it's something that you have to feel. So this leader is able to free slaves every day. He'll repeat this every day. You'll find in a month, 30 days he does his stuff, and 30 days he frees slaves. He has the capacity. So let him fast 2 months so that he can feel the pain. Type. What about the lady? Your wife, you're intimate with her. Is there any punishment on her? Or there's no punishment on her? Why? Why the same punishment? Because you're making the same mistake. Type. This hadith of this old man who came to the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ kept a penalty on him. He did not ask about the wife. How do you answer that? No, it was zina, it was his halal wife. It was his halal wife. The Prophet ﷺ kept all the punishment on the man. So some people assume that there's no punishment on the woman. No. A man and a woman, when it comes to Islamic rule, it's the same. You make a mistake, you're treated the same as you said. You're treated the same. So if the woman also was wanting to do the act, then she has to have the same penalty. If she was obedient, she accepted everything, then she has the same penalty. But if she was forced, or he forced himself upon her, then she has no penalty. Type. We have so many issues to take today, Ikhwan Fillah. And this is the funniest issue I've ever seen in my life. I don't know how it's possible. He says, if you have intercourse and you forget it's Ramadan, how is that possible? I don't know. How is that possible? I don't know. Allah. Type. He says, Man jama'a nasiyan fasawmu sahih. He says their fast is sahih. They don't even need to pay that day, and they don't need to pay the penalty. They don't need to pay that day. They don't need to pay the penalty. Very strange. Type. Because this is like the same ruling that we had for the eating and the drinking, the one who forgets. And this is the madhab of the Hanafiyyah and the Shafi'iyyah. Type. Ikhwan Fillah, when it comes to this issue of intimacy, it destroys a lot of ibadah. Ramadan, it will destroy your Ramadan. You'll be punished severely. Hajj, you're not allowed even in Hajj. You'll be punished severely. Of course, Salah, no one can do it in Salah. Also, i'tikaf, وَلَا تُبَاشِرُهُنَّ وَأَنْتُمْ عَاكِفُونَ فِي الْمَسَاجِدِ. So you have to be very careful with this halal that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. It's your desires, you keep it until when it reaches the correct time. Type. If someone, Ikhwan Fillah, they have intercourse on the day of Ramadan once, what's the punishment on that day? The 2 months you mentioned, the 60 days, the freed slave, you free the slave, then you do what? 2 months fasting, then you feed 60 people. It's tartib, it's in order. So that one day, if he has intercourse 2 times or 3 times that day or 4 times that day, for example, the punishment will be how much? Because it's one day, it will still be the same punishment of 2 months or 60 days. But if he does it another day of Ramadan, then another 2 months. And there's a Pakistani brother who asked me that question. He made that mistake. In one Ramadan, he was intimate with his wife twice in the month of Ramadan on separate days. So he had to fast 2 months consecutively and another 2 months consecutively. So he had to fast 4 months to pay for that few minutes of pleasure. Type.
So it applies twice.
Now?
The punishment applies twice.
Each day is unique. So if he has on one day he's broken his fast, he has to pay that day, and he has to fast 2 months consecutive. So day 2 or day 3 he makes the same mistake, he has to pay that day, and he has to fast 2 months consecutive. Ahmed, close your ears. Ahmed, put both fingers. I don't like this issue, but I have to mention it. If someone commits this act of LGBTQ, a man with a man, I don't need to explain further, or a man with a woman in a place that is not supposed to go. There's a place that the married people, they're not supposed to go in a lady type. If someone does that, the punishment is the same as the one who has sex with his wife in the place that they're allowed to go. Are we together? I don't need to explain further. There are children in the mosque. Type. A person who goes to his wife, the place he's not allowed to go, which is the backside, has the same punishment of the one who has entered his wife on the front. So they have to pay the same penalty of 2 months or feeding 60 people. Type. What if it's a sawm that is wajib? You have sawm that is kafara or nadr, or you're paying a Ramadan that you've missed. In Shawwal, in the Hijjah, you're paying an obligatory fast. Then you get intimate with your wife during the day that you're paying that obligatory fast. You're paying back Ramadan, for example. You're like sisters, every month they have periods, 6 days, 7 days. So they're paying their 6 days, 7 days. The brother sometimes when he travels, when he's sick. So he pays his fast after Ramadan. So that day that he's paying his fast, he started his date. He must complete that day because it's an obligatory fast. But if he has intimacy with his wife, what is the penalty? Is this the same penalty of 2 months or not? Who says the same penalty of 2 months? It's not the same penalty of 2 months because it's not the month of Ramadan. Ramadan has a specific respect, a specific hurma type. So we've taken the issue regarding food and drink and intimacy with the wife. The next issue, ikhwani fillah, is khuruj al-mani. If you have ejaculation coming out, that breaks your fast in some instances, and some instances it does not break your fast. The first instance that the scholars mentioned here is the issue of masturbation. Masturbation is haram according to the scholars. So if someone masturbates during the day of Ramadan and something comes out, they have definitely broken their fast for that day. They have to repay back that day, and they have done a sin. They have to repent to Allah Azza wa Jal. The second issue, they have no penalty of 2 months because it's not the same as intercourse. It's not the same as intercourse. Type. Related to this issue, if someone touches the wife or kisses the wife or hugs the wife, then something comes out. He ejaculates. Also that spoils his fast for that day, but he has no penalty to pay. You're not allowed, if you're not able to control yourself, or your body organs do not control themselves, for you to touch your wife or kiss your wife or hug your wife during the month of Ramadan. Some people have premature or whatever it's called, so they end up spoiling their fast, and that's the case. Leave your wife, come to the mosque, stay until Maghrib, then go to your wife. Type. Is there a kafara? There's no kafara. There's no penalty of 2 months for this also, because it's not the same as intercourse. Also, if you look at your halal wife or you look at haram, then it comes out. Ejaculation is the one that comes out with pressure, with some force, some ladha. It comes out with pleasure and it comes out with force. That is the ejaculation that we mean. If that one comes out because you're looking, also that spoils your fast, according to the correct opinion of the scholars. There's khilaf amongst it, but that also spoils your fast. You have to repay back that day. What if you're just thinking, then it comes out? Just imagining things and creating fantasies, it comes out. Does that spoil your fast or not? Sorry, I have to talk these issues. They're in the books of fiqh. Although there are children here, but most of us, or some of us, are going to experience such things. We have to make it clear. There's a lady, she came to the Prophet ﷺ. She says, "Oh Prophet, Inna Allah la yastahi min al-haq." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not shy when it comes to the truth. What does a lady who has a lot of discharge do when she sees a lot of discharge? Then the Prophet ﷺ explained to her what she was to do. These are ladies who are from noble families, Arabs with their shyness. But when it comes to the deen, there's no shyness. You have to ask anything that may affect your akhirah. Type. So there's no shyness when it comes to issues. I'm very shy also talking about it, but I have no choice except to make it clear to the people. So if you just have fantasies and it comes out, the scholar says, Fala yuftir, it does not break your fast. So just that you have not intended for anything to come out, it just came out. That does not break your fast. Just go, you take your ghusl, and you take your wudu, then you can continue praying. Type. What if you sleep during the day of Ramadan, and you have a wet dream? Does that break your fast? Why? It does not break your fast, number one, because it's not something within your control. It's not something within your control. And it's also a way of knowing someone has reached what we mentioned before? Puberty. So if a child has a wet dream during the day of Ramadan, then that child has shifted from a child who is not held to account to a person who is going to be held to account. Their deeds are going to be written. So from that date or the next day after it, fasting is obligatory upon them. They have to start fasting as the other Muslims, obligatory upon them, and all the rulings apply to them. There's so many issues we'll take today, inshallah. There is something, also a discharge that comes out, it's called al-madhi. When it comes to discharge that come out of people, we'll talk about this when we talk about in Kitab al-Tahara. There's wadi. Wadi is what comes out after you urinate. You can see sometimes some yellowness or some sticky something, it comes out with urination. That's called wadi. That does not harm you at all, you just wash yourself. Madhi is the one that comes out because of you being in an excited state. Being in a state of excitement because of touching or looking or thinking or whatever, that does not also break your fast. You just need to wash yourself and take fresh wudu. Look at this situation also when it comes to shyness. Ali ibn Abi Talib radhiallahu anhu was married to the daughter of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Fatima. He says, "Kuntu rajulun madha." I was a man that was having a lot of this discharge that is called madhi. The discharge that comes out when the sticky one that comes out, it's not the ejaculation, the other one. I don't know what it's called in English. So he says, I was afraid to ask the Prophet ﷺ because this is something related to his daughter. I'm the husband to the daughter. So I sent Miqdad ibn al-Aswad to ask the Prophet ﷺ what to do when you have such a discharge. It's called madhi. This is a sticky substance. It just comes out because of pleasure or excitement or something like that. So you just have to clean your private parts and you take your wudu and you continue your fast. It does not harm your siyam in any bit. We have so many issues to take. Vomiting. If you vomit, does it break your fast? If you do it intentionally, it breaks your fast. If you do it intentionally, it breaks your fast. If it just comes out without your control, it does not break your fast. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, "Man istaqa'a wa huwa sa'im." Whoever seeks to vomit and they're fasting, فَعَلَيْهِ الْقَضَاء, he has to pay that day. He has to pay for that day. The next issue, we have so many. What is the ruling of a lady who menstruates or has bleeding that comes out due to giving birth or miscarriage during the day of Ramadan? Such a lady, she cannot fast that day. She cannot fast that day. That day is gone and she has to repay that day or the days thereafter that she's not fasting. So if you are a sister and you get your periods, you have to repay that day. And this is the same issue with these timetables. People don't know. These timetables cause a lot of havoc. Sometimes sisters, they get their periods like a few minutes before the adhan of iftar. Some of them cry, they break down, but there's no harm on them. They'll get the reward and they fast another day and they'll get a reward. It's not gone completely. The reward, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who is in charge of it. It's not for us to say. So when you keep your timetable 10 minutes later, you're affecting this lady with regards to that issue. Also, other issues of zakatul fitr appear. Also, if a child is born at that time, or someone dies on the last day of Ramadan, what time do you follow? The time of adhan or the time of those timetables? So those timetables, they need to fear Allah Azza wa Jal and to keep the exact time that is the adhan of Maghrib and the exact time that is adhan of Fajr without changing anything. Maybe one day we'll talk about the issues that are affected because of this small. People look at it, a tiny change, something small. Something small. Even if small urine comes out of you, it breaks your wudu. So something small sometimes destroy a lot of things. Right? If a lady gets her periods during the day of Ramadan, is she allowed to eat? Yes, she's allowed to eat. What if the opposite? She sees the sign of purity during the day of Ramadan. Is she allowed to eat the remainder of the day? Yes, she's allowed to eat the remainder of the day because she did not, the day how it started, she had a valid reason to eat. So you cannot stop her from continuing eating. She had a valid reason. And this is the madhab of Imam Malik and Imam Shafi'i. Who can remember the years of the ulama? They passed away. Abu Hanifa. Who can remember Abu Hanifa? Naam, Muhammad Sharif. Abu Hanifa come. Which year? Imam Ahmed. 241. Imam Shafi'i, Muhammad Idris Shafi'i. 204. Imam Malik ibn Anas. 179. Still not 100%. Inshallah, we'll get it next week. Type. Remember the issue of the 2 months. Say someone starts fasting on the 15th of Shawwal. Their penalty of 2 months. Are we together? They start fasting on the 15th of Shawwal. The 15th of Shawwal to the 14th of Dhul Qa'dah is how long? Is 1 month, 30 days. The 15th of Dhul Qa'dah to the 9th of Dhul Hijjah is 15 plus 9, 24 days. Then it is haram for them to fast on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. Also the 3 days that come after the Ayyam Tashriq, it's haram for them to fast. So these are valid reasons for them to break the consistency. They have to fast 60 continuous days. So from day 10, 11, 12, 13, day 14 of Dhul Hijjah, they have to start their fast again to complete the remainder of the days that are left for the 60 days. That's for man. For the lady, it's different also. Says she starts her fast, the penalty on the 15th of Shawwal. Then she fasts to the 7th of Dhul Qa'dah. She gets her periods. Has she left fasting for a valid reason? Yes. So this does not break the condition of keeping for 60 consistent days. So once she gets pure, she continues. Then the days of Eid, she stops. Then she continues at 60 days. It has to be 60 consecutive days. But these days, there's an allowance with regards to the periods for the ladies, and an allowance with the days that are haram for you to fast, which are the days of Eid and the days of Ayyam Tashriq. If someone loses their mind during the day of Ramadan, or they're unconscious, if they're unconscious for the whole day, they lose their mind for the whole day, there's no fast. They have to pay that day. But if they understand what is going on and they can get the intention even for a short while of the day, even a few minutes, then their fast is okay. We mentioned this issue previously. If someone sleeps during the day of Ramadan, they sleep knockout. From maybe 7 after Fajr, they go sleep until night. Their fast is okay. They have to pay those salahs, and there's no sin upon them because they slept for a valid reason. I remember in Medina, there's a brother who came from Brazil. So he traveled, I think, from a village to Sao Paulo in Brazil. Then from Sao Paulo, he went to Spain. From Spain, he went to Turkey. From Turkey, he came to Jeddah. From Jeddah, he came to Medina. He went like very long travel. He reached Medina, the hostel or the dorms we have over there, entered his room and he slept. And he woke up 3 days thereafter. He woke up 3 days after. Type. What is the ruling of such a person? With regards to their prayer, they have to pay each single prayer in the order of prayers. They have to pay each prayer at the order of prayers. Type. The next issue, Khanifillah, is the issue of if someone apostates and leaves Islam. That's easy. Their soul becomes invalid. But later on, when they come back to Islam, they have to pay that day, that particular day that they apostated in. The days after, they don't need to pay because they are no longer Muslims. But that day they started as Muslims, they have to repay for that day. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us a thabat. طيب. if someone changes intention, and this happens in the first few days of Ramadan, your body is not used to the fasting, then you're like, I'm not continuing. You say, I'm not continuing. That saying, I'm not continuing, and you have made the firm decision, I'm not continuing, is considered that you have invalidated your fast. And you have to repay for that day. Are you together? But if you say, should I continue, should I not continue? That is still doubtful. But if you make the decision, I'm not continuing. If I'm getting food like this, I'm eating. If I get drink, I am drinking. Then you have to pay for that day. Intention is very important. Intention is very important. We'll give time for questions, inshallah. If you do hijama, which is cupping, or something else that is called, I forget the word. Sometimes you have like a big boil and they cut it and it comes a lot of blood out. What does that do to your fast? The scholars have a difference of opinion. Some of them say al-hijama, cupping, removing blood, dirty blood from the body, it invalidates your fast. And this is the madhab of Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal. The majority of the scholars say it does not break your fast. But just to be on the safe side, do not do cupping during the day of Ramadan. Do it at night if you need. Usifanye hijama, don't do hijama during the day, if possible. Based on this, what if you want to do a blood test? For whatever reason, you're sick, you're doing a lab test, you're told to go get your HB count, your blood count, or check for your CRP, or whatever they're called, the protein levels. Taking blood for laboratory test does not break your fast. Donating blood, it breaks your fast if you are of the opinion that hijama breaks your fast. So you cannot donate. To be on the safe side, if you want to donate blood, donate it at night. Donate it at night. That will break your fast. The next issue, sorry, we're taking so many issues regarding the things that invalidate your fast. An injection, if you take an injection, does that break your fast? Some injections will break your fast, some injections will not break your fast. An injection that has nutritional value will break your fast. An injection that has no nutritional value, e.g. hormones or such things, or antibiotics or something, it does not break your fast, according to the majority of the scholars. Allah knows best. The eye drops does not break your fast. Ear drops does not break your fast. Nose drops might break your fast if the drops reach your stomach. Sometimes when the nose and the mouth are somehow connected, so if you test it and you swallow it, that will break your fast. So if you test it, spit it out. If you test the nose drop, you spit it out. Ear drops does not break your fast. Eye drops does not break your fast. The nose, even when you're doing wudu, when you're doing the istinshaq, you're told do not do it extreme, because there's a fear that the water will enter your system. Using the toothbrush, are you allowed to use the toothbrush with the Colgate and the close-ups and the toothpaste? Yes, you're allowed to use your toothbrush at any time. There's no restriction between that and the time of zawal, of noon, you could stop. Are you allowed to swim? As long as you don't drink the water. Are you allowed to take a shower? Take as much showers as you want. Are you allowed to be in the sauna, the steam? You're allowed. Are you allowed, I don't know. Type. The next issue, is the issue of nose drops. We mentioned that already. Dialysis. If you have kidney problems and you do dialysis, that will break your fast. Dialysis will invalidate your fast. You have to pay for that day if you're able to pay, or you will do fidya. So dialysis will break your fast. If you have asthma and you take this, what are they called? Inhalers or the nebulizer also. If you take the inhalers or the nebulizers, does that break your fast? Is that considered food or drink in the first place? That's a medicine. Is there any food or drink value that you can get from inhaling the inhalers when you're struggling? So it does not break your fast when you use the inhalers or the nebulizers. The next issue, is the issue of sometimes someone has a heart attack and they keep something like, they call it aspirin or something. They keep there's some medicine they keep here under the tongue. under the tongue. This does not break your fast as long as you do not swallow it when it melts. So that allows the heart to work again or something. I don't know how it works, but it does not break your fast according to the correct opinion. But if you swallow when it melts, that will break your fast. I know many of us are thinking, oh, these things will happen to us one day. These things will happen to us one day, and it will happen to someone close to us, so you need to know the rulings. Type. Oxygen. You're given oxygen. Your oxygen levels are low. Does that break your fast? Why? Why does it not break your fast? It's the same as breathing. This air that you're breathing, does this air breathing break your fast? Based on that, if you take this oud, al-bakhur, this unsi, nice smelling, does that break your fast? Is it considered food or drink in any language in the world? It does not consider food or drink in any language in the world. It does not break your fast. Inshallah, keep time for questions because it's the last lesson. We'll keep times for questions. We said injections, as long as they do not have nutritional value, it does not break your fast. If it has nutritional value, it breaks your fast. Insulin does not break your fast because insulin is a hormone. Insulin injections do not break your fast. So if you're diabetic, you can take your insulin injections. It will not break your fast. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. That's what the scholars have said. Type. Some things, I'm not in the medical field. Sometimes they need to put liquids either on the front side for a lady or on the back side for a lady or a man. That is not considered eating or drinking. Sometimes they have to wash your intestines or something and they put water from you from under there. That is not considered eating or drinking. That does not break your fast. All this is mentioned by the scholar here. تقطير في الفرج المرأة, we've mentioned it. طيب. Khani fillah, that's basically the things that we are to avoid, especially in this month of Ramadan. Of course, the main three things are food, drink, and intimacy. These are other issues that are also mentioned by the scholars. Inshallah, we'll keep room for any questions. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.